Hi folks, welcome to Set Apart Homestead. This is Travis here at the Prepared Homestead. Well, can it get any crazier? It seems like every day you wake up and you never know what you're gonna hear on the news. More lockdowns, quarantines, people being pulled off the street and thrown in jail because they're violating quarantine orders, food shortages, all kinds of stuff. Rumors of war, all kinds of craziness. It's like every day, you just never know. And it's funny because myself and a few others, actually probably several others, talked about this the end of last year. We were just saying that it's like the handwriting was on the wall. That 2020 seemed to be the year for a lot of craziness. There was nothing that I used specifically to predict that, because I didn't predict it. It just seemed like, more and more what was going on around the world and in our own government, that I felt that it was building and building and building. It was festering and it was about ready to explode. And little did I know at the time that there was a pandemic brewing. And like I've said many times, our system across the board, everything, is so fragile that it wouldn't take much to cause it to just break. And that's what we're seeing, folks. I really hope and pray that you, my listeners, because I really appreciate all of you when you're kind of like an extended family or extended friends, and some of you are our friends. So I really hope and pray that you folks have gotten ready as best as you can. And I know you're probably saying, yeah, but I'm not completely ready. I don't think any of us ever really are. No matter how much stuff you have, no matter how much you've planned and trained, I don't think it's possible to be completely ready for something like this. And there are very few things that will cause as much catastrophic damage on an international global scale as a pandemic. And that's what we're seeing now. But I hope that you're ready at least somewhat, because any level of preparedness that you have going is going to put you head and shoulders above of the average person that was not prepared and is still not prepared. If you're able to continually prep up and get supplies and stuff, some places you still can. So if you're able to do that, go ahead. It seems like has not affected the rural areas as much, but I was checking on some numbers actually just this morning, and a lot of your rural counties across the states are starting to pick up some speed. They may only have 1, 2, 3, 4 cases officially, but they are certainly picking up speed. And while I suspect the bulk of the danger of this virus itself will be in the big cities, the danger of the other stuff that comes from the virus will definitely affect you in the rural areas. I like to kind of explain it as like tidal waves. And the first part of that, the first tidal wave that's coming, is the virus itself, which has caused this pandemic. So you've got that first wave and it's crashing the shore. And the wave after that is the panic of the people. And we saw some of that in the beginning, where people were going out and panic shopping, but not everyone. Now we're starting to see more people panic, calling out those of us that are preppers as hoarders. We're seeing people in other countries loot and do violent acts. We're seeing that also in our own country, violent acts. So that's kind of like that second wave. And then the third wave, in my opinion, is probably going to be either the economy or the food supply system, and they're one or the other may be first, but they're both kind of back to back. And we're starting to see that now. The economy is starting to take a lot of hits, and the food supply system is really faltering. And then the last wave, the last really big wave, and that's the big tsunami. That's government stepping in and, saving everybody by enacting, draconian laws that are said to protect us, but actually do nothing but take away rights. And this time around, in the past, things like that, for instance, 9/11, ended up taking away a lot of our personal liberties. But I fear that this one will be worse in the way that it will be the kind of the spawn of a new world order. I see too many things, too many handwriting on the wall. And I know that there's a lot of people that say, yeah, but that's not what Trump's doing. Regardless of what Trump's doing, I think that's where we're headed. If you read in your Bible, it's right there that someone will step up and, bring peace to chaos. And then the New World Order is established. One of the things I wanted to talk about specifically, and try not to do just a lot of rambling, is this food supply thing. Most preppers, including myself, are generally really big on, prepping food, growing food, foraging food, hunting, fishing, that kind of stuff, being food independent. And the reason why we are is because many of us see, and some of us even have experience because of, previous jobs, that we understand the fragility of America's food supply. Most Americans think that there's just this abundance of food, and that anytime we go to the store, there's always going to be food there because there's warehouses full of food, because there's farms full of food. The truth is that we're just really a few days away from it all collapsing, and that's what we're seeing. The media keeps talking about and blaming us preppers that we're hoarding food. We're buying up all this food and hoarding it. And in the beginning, sure, there were some videos and pictures of people going out and doing some mass buying of food. But that's not happening anymore. And the reason why that's not happening is because most all these stores, especially the big chain grocery stores, but even the smaller ones, are putting limits on what you can purchase. So you're not seeing people go in and buy a basket full of milk and a basket full of hamburger and a basket full of toilet paper because they're not allowing you to do that. But yet, when you go to a grocery store or a Walmart or something, you're seeing bare shelves or shelves with not a lot of food on them. Just barely enough, and a lot of stuff are completely gone. Well, that's not because people are hoarding it all up, because they're not allowing that. It's because the food supply system is falling apart. It's because there's no imports coming in. It's because of various things, and I think the imports is a big one. But I also believe, because of some of the rumors that I'm hearing, that it's also due to the government themselves buying up. There's a lot of rumors and stories. Most of it's unverified, but comes from pretty good sources. That the U.S. Army, FEMA, different agencies, Department of Homeland Security, are going around to farms and buying up all the beef cattle, or calling up different food supply companies and buying food by the truckloads. Why? I guess, you can kind of make the best guess possible on that. But the point is that our food supply system is taking a hit. And this is something that myself and others have warned for years, to make sure you're not solely dependent upon the grocery store, or at least dependent on the fact that every time you go to the grocery store, there's food there. You need to have your own food supply built up, stockpile on your own, and then also have a way to produce your own food. And so it's very critical, and a lot of people are finally waking up like, yeah, that's what you guys were talking about. That's right. It's not stable. And as this gets worse, I think we're going to see things get worse. in the last few years. Last year I read alone, just last year, 1,200 dairy farms closed down. The amount of corn and wheat that was produced and soybean that was produced in the United States was drastically less, or at least that was harvested. There's reports that anywhere from 20 to 40% of the corn that was planted in the Dakotas was not able to be harvested due to the weather. We're not getting a lot of the imports coming in right now because of all this virus and because of ports getting shut down and regulations of import and export. We get the majority of our fruit and vegetables from imports. As crazy as that seems, the great majority of our fruit and vegetables are imported in. So it's taking a hit. Just a way to kind of put it into a picture, my son works for an electrical company, and they do commercial electrical work. And there is a very, very large grocery distribution warehouse in the Midwest, one of the largest. It's about 7 million square foot. And for the past year, my son's company has been doing some electrical work there. I guess they're rewiring part of the warehouse, something like that. Anyways, he called me the other night, and he said, Dad, he said, this is really starting to kind of hit home. I'm starting to get a little nervous. He said, because at work, not his, because they're contractors for the electric, but the actual workers at the warehouse, this grocery distribution warehouse, they're laying a bunch of them off because the warehouse is virtually empty, he said. He said, this place used to be just packed full, and trucks every day coming in and unloading, pallet after pallet after pallet of stuff so that it can be redistributed to grocery stores. And he said this place is nearly empty. He said there's hardly any food in this warehouse, 7 million square foot. He said, and they're starting to lay employees off because there's not enough work for them. And I would think in the times that we are in with this pandemic and people being told to stay home for a few weeks or months, that a job like that in a grocery store is going to, a warehouse distribution is going to be critical. And yet it's not, because there's no food to distribute. Of course, he doesn't know why, but the fact is that there's this massive grocery warehouse that's nearly empty. And I don't know, but I would assume that that's probably the case in many others across the nation. I spoke to a local grocery store manager, and out here, we're way out in the sticks, so it's just a little small kind of mom and pop grocery store. But I heard something. But he was telling me that it's not really that people are buying up a lot of stuff in his store. It's the fact that they're not getting any food in. He said about all they're getting in off of trucks is milk and bread. He said once in a while they get some, stuff like canned foods and stuff. He said, but they're really just not getting any food in. So there again, it's not people going out and hoarding food. It's the fact that the supply chain is being broken down and can't, provide what we need. So folks, I don't want to sound like I'm just, bringing a bunch of bad news. And I'm sure that most of you are pretty awake of what's going on. But I don't think that it's going to get better for quite a while. And I have a very eerie gut feeling that when this is all over, pandemic-wise, virus-wise, that the world as we know it will look completely different. I cannot think of a time in history where any government, including our own, was given extraordinary powers because of some grand emergency, given power to do something they normally wouldn't do because of whatever was happening. And then when it was over, that government just turned around and giving that power back. I don't know. And if I'm incorrect, if there are cases of that, please let me know. But, we're arresting preachers now. I read today, arresting preachers for holding services that violates orders. People are being made to stay in their homes. Other countries are welding the doors shut of homes. We're seeing stuff like this all over the world. checkpoints here in the United States where you have to, tell where you're going or where you've been, and things that most Americans 6 months to a year ago would have laughed at, would have thought that would have never happened here in the United States, and it's happening now. And the reality is this is really just getting started. We're still in the early stages of this. New York is getting hit pretty hard, but the rest of the country is just starting to kind of get going. So how much worse is it going to get? And again, I fear that when this is all over, we're not just going to go back to being, wonderful apple pie, America again. It's going to change things drastically. And so I hope that you folks are aware of that, or at least kind of thinking about that and being prepared, because I kind of don't foresee the greatest future for us as a country right now. And I don't want to sound like I'm, all pessimistic and poo-pooing and, talking about doomsday. I'm not. It's not that. It's that, power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And we are giving our government and many other governments absolute power in this. And they, no matter how much you love a president or anyone else in power, in the end, they are still human, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And so I think it's time for many of you, if you're able to, I said this, I think in the last video, maybe the last two videos, if you are able to, this would probably be the best time to get you a place, maybe something like what you see behind me. This is our place. Or at least part of it. And no, I'm not going to tell you where I'm at. I wouldn't do that normally, but I especially won't do that now. It is in the Ozarks, because the Ozarks I love dearly, and everyone knows that. But, sorry, I bumped my camera. But if you're able to get a place like this, they still exist, but people are buying them up fast. I've talked to a couple people that sell these kind of properties, and they say that as soon as they find one for sale, they get bought up because people are buying bug-out properties. I know that there's those that can't do this, and you're just going to have to figure out the best way you can to hunker down where you're at, because I think for many of you and many of us, it's going to get rough for a while. And if you live in a big city, I don't know what positive things to really say to you, because these big cities are getting hit really hard. Not just with the virus, but also with draconian laws that are being passed, and violence in the streets. So I guess we can pray for you and do the very best you can to secure your location, physically secure it, and secure it food and water wise. Go back and watch some of the videos that I've made in the past, because I've talked about this kind of stuff many times, of what to do and how to prep. Folks, those of us that are preppers, and I assume that pretty much everyone is, or you wouldn't be watching this, we talk about all the time of prepping for SHTF. Poo-poo hits the van. I am 42 years old, and I cannot think of another time in my life that was more of an SHTF than what we're living in right now. It is go time. If you have a preparedness plan in place for things, it's time to start looking at that and enacting it. Again, I'm not one to be a doomsday or sky is falling panic button guy, but for your own personal safety, you need to start getting prepared. And it's not just because of the virus. You may not even get the virus, and even if you did, you could survive it, because a lot of people do. That's not the danger. That's what I've said all along. Yes, it's going to be a danger for many people, but not for everyone. But the economy, the food supply system, the draconian laws that the government will come in and create, that will affect you. So folks, get yourselves ready. Let me know how you're doing, and try to communicate with each other. There's a private forum that I have, and I think it's at the very bottom of the list of links in the description. If you want to get on there, it's a little bit more secure than like Facebook, and you folks can kind of communicate, maybe coordinate efforts if you need to. But let's all stick together through this, okay? Because in the end, we can survive this, because you know what? I know who holds tomorrow. I know how this story ends. I've already read the end of the book, you know? So we can survive this, and we will prevail. All right, folks. Thank you all for watching. Catch you in the next video.